Yo, what is going on, guys? Dr. Schwaz here. Welcome back to another Gears 5 video. So today I'm going to be talking about the updated and newly refreshed Horde spawn rotation in Gears 5. So when the game launched, there were a completely different set of wave patterns, I would say. And then in Operation 6 and 7, they added more. They added Locust to the game, and then they added Lambent later on in an update. So now there's a mixture of lots of Locust, lots of Swarm, even Lambent, robots, all in Horde. So today I'm just going to be summarizing basically the spawning pattern. I'm going to be talking about each of the 4 enemy sets you get, and then I'm talking about certain enemies that are unique to those sets, and then certain enemies that are spawn all the time. So let's get started. Alrighty, guys. So there's 4 enemy sets in Horde. You've got robots or DBs. You've got leeches and imagos. You've got locust enemies with Juvies, and you've also got Lambent enemies with Juvies. So this was recently changed once they added locust and Lambent enemies to the game, Operation 6, 7, around there. So they've changed up the spawning rotation of enemies in Horde. So I'm going to be discussing that in more detail. So I'm going to start with robots here. So how do you know that what enemy set you pull? Basically, you check what kind of enemies you get on the first wave, and each set is going to have its own unique couple of enemies, and I'll go into that in a second. So robots on the first wave, you're going to have peacemakers and shock trackers only. And you'll have some locusts as well, but if you have a peacemaker and a shock tracker, you know that robots are going to be the what you're going to be dealing with the next 10 waves. So here I have basically a picture of all the robots, right? So you've got Peacemaker, Shock Tracker, Deadeye, Protector, Oppressor, Devastator, DR1s, and then you get a Guardian as well. And then I have a little table here in the middle that shows you what ways you get those enemies on. So you pull Shock Trackers 1 through 4, Peacemakers 1 through 6, Protectors 2 through 6. So if you have an Infiltrator, they can get an overkill. If you have robots early, very useful. A lot of classes can benefit from that weapon as well. An oppressor will spawn, DR1 oppressor will spawn 4 through 8, and then a DR1 devastator will spawn waves 8 through 10. So the gunner is going to want to look out for those two, depending on what build they're running, like the tri-shot or the salvo build. Now you know what waves they spawn. The guardian as well also yields a tri-shot. They spawn from waves 7 through 10. So this is just a range, just because an enemy can spawn between 3 or 4 waves doesn't guarantee that they'll spawn on any specific wave, but that's just a range in which you will see that enemy. That's the table right there. And yeah, let's move on to the next set. Alrighty, guys. So moving on to the next enemy set, we got leeches and imagos. So the way you know that you have this set is if on the first wave you have leeches and imagos spawn. Shockingly, it's not difficult to figure out. Coming up on this next slide here, I'm going to show on screen is going to be the enemies that spawn exclusively with leeches and imago waves. So you obviously going to have leeches and imagos. You'll also have the drop shot scion, which will spawn, and they only spawn when you have leeches and imagos. You also have the hunter, the elite grenadier, and the elite sniper. And then the ways that they will spawn there is in the top right corner. So the first 6 ways you'll have imagos, and then leeches will be available too. The first 6 ways, and then on wave 10, boss wave it returns. Drop shot scion is a key one here. They spawn wave 2 through 7. So your pilot, your demo, your tact, they could definitely benefit from it. Definitely the pilot with the hammer card, very useful. Just know that drop shot scions only appear on leeches and imago waves. And then you also have the hunter and elite hunter that spawn on waves 4 through 7. The hunter carries the marxa and the elite hunter carries the torque bow, so it can benefit the classes that want to have those weapons. Torque bow for like the gunner could be very useful. Marxa for a marksman or a nomad could be useful for that. And then the Elite Grenadiers and the Elite Snipers spawn waves 6 through 10. The Elite Grenadiers yield overkills, and the Elite Snipers have M bars. So you can have access to those weapons on those waves. And that is pretty much the Leeches and Imagos. We're going to move on to the next enemy. Alrighty, so the next enemy set is what I call Locust slash Juvie waves. And the reason I call it that is because there's another enemy set that's similar to it with Juvies as well, so I had to distinguish it. So on Locust slash Juvie waves, what you're mostly going to have is all your Locust enemies are going to be in this one. The following three, though, are exclusively only going to spawn in this set. So the Locust hybrids are basically the Locust with the spikes in the back. Kind of jokingly called Diaper Locust, whatever you want to call them. They spawn in the first 6 waves on this enemy set, 1 through 6. They hold the Retro Lancer, so that's useful to classes like Veteran, Nomad. Um, so anyone that needs a Retro, that's where you can get it without buying it from the Fab if you pull this enemy set. You also get Ice Scions starting on the next wave, so waves 2 through 7. You can get Cryo Scions or Ice Scions. So if your engineer has a locker built later on, they can put the cryos on them and then use that to freeze bosses, flocks, whatever have you to help your team out in Horde. And then the third and final unique enemy on this set is the Palace Guard. They spawn waves 6 through 10. So these are like elite Theron guards. They basically can pick up any weapon from the field and use them against you. So be on the lookout and make sure to eliminate these enemies pretty quickly. Alrighty guys, so the fourth and final enemy set is the Lambent slash Juvies enemy set. And what spawns on Lambent waves are Lambent drones, Lambent grenadiers, and Lambent Theron. So in this picture you'll see that the drones on the right, the grenadier in the middle, Theron on the left. And then there's a unique Scion that spawns on Lambent waves, which is the Buzzkill Scion. Now, I don't know a lot of classes that'll want to use a Buzzkill over like a Mulcher, Tri-Shot, or a Salvo, but if you're a gunner, maybe you can pick up a Buzzkill, use it. Let's say maybe you have Lambent waves in the first 10, you may have a Buzzkill, you can use it for a little bit of the waves until you get Salvos later. But yeah, that's when Buzzkill Scions spawn. So those 4 enemies are just unique to Lambent waves, and then that's pretty much it for the enemies. Alrighty guys, so in this video so far we discussed the 4 enemy sets that you have: robots, leeches and imagos, locusts and juvies, and lambent and juvies. And basically I showed you how to know what enemy set you pulled based on the unique enemies you can pull from each of those spawns. Of course, there are plenty of enemies that spawn all the time that I'm not going to mention because I'm just going to show it in a table. Like Bolters and Cyclopses and Sires and Therons, they spawn all the time. Boomshot Scions spawn on every set. Mulcher Scions spawn on every set. Warden spawn. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that because I have an Excel sheet where I did all the research on that. But I'll show you all that in the end of the video. I also wanted to talk about bosses and mini-bosses. So it's been a while, but they demoted the Warden back down to a regular boss, regular enemy now. So it's just in regular Horde rotation. The Flock got demoted down to a mini boss, and they added the Wakatu way back in Operation 5 with the High Busters DLC. So the regular bosses are the Kestrel, the Snatcher, the Sormak, the Wakatu, and the Matriarch. And then the Carrier, for some reason, only spawns on wave 15. I guess it has an identity crisis, doesn't want to know whether it wants to be a boss or a mini boss. It's been this way for a long time. I don't know if the Coalition know about it. But it's like a wave 15 boss with like wave 40 health, so that's a little crazy. And then the mini bosses, the Stump, the Sentinel, and the Flock, those will show up on the 5 waves starting on 15. So sometimes the Flocks show up in pairs. As far as bosses go, I want one last thing here is that there's no pattern on what enemy sets bosses spawn on, so bosses can spawn whenever. You can get any boss with any enemy set. So you can get a Snatcher, a Ward, like a Matriarch, a Kestrel, uh, Thormac, Wakatu on whatever map. The only thing that's limits the bosses that can spawn are maps that are indoors. So indoor maps, you won't get enemies like the Kestrel, the Wakatu. They won't spawn because simply there's no coding to allow for that to happen. So like on indoor maps like Overload, that's why you only get the occasional carrier or the Snatcher and Meteor combo. If you want all the bosses, you have to do an outdoor map because that's the only place where there's enough space for them to spawn. But yeah, I just want to mention that, and thank you all so much for watching. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments below. And yeah, this has been Dr. Schwaz. Y'all have a good one. See you.